As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. I was born into freedom in a wonderful land of mountains and plains, rivers and lakes. Forever American is what I am. A past as rich as any can be. My father's worked hard to give this to me. I love this place I come from. To live another way I cannot foresee. As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. As an American, I've been to the peaks of majestic mountains where the air is sweet. I've watched the eagle as it soars in beautiful skies that just can't be ignored. And by this country I'll always stand, for freedom and liberty for every man. When times are hard and things get rough, America always stands ready and rough. As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. Forever American is what I am.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. You should be able to, just making sure. But how you guys all doing tonight? A lot going on in the world. A little bit of world, but we have left. I mean, the same part. How you doing, Debbie Martin? How you doing, Debbie Rogers? How you doing, Nana? How you doing, Tia? Hi, Pam. Hi, Richard. Hi, BK. Hi, Glenda. Hi, Teresa. How you guys doing? Yeah, my voice should sound pretty clear tonight. I made sure I changed that up so we could actually hear a little bit better. Let's talk about this. First of all, the U.S. is approving another $1.3 billion package for long-term military aid for Ukraine. This announcement, of course, today includes 4 air defense systems, an undisclosed number of drones, which, again, I said was going to happen. Our long-range carrier drones, or defensive drones that we use, or offensive drones is what I'd say, are going to Ukraine. So those are long-range weapons that could easily target Moscow. We know this. This is, of course, on the heels of the meeting on Tuesday by the defense and military leaders around the globe to discuss the ongoing efforts in Ukraine. These weapons are not anything that should be going there. These are munitions that are directly going to end up hitting inside of Russia, provocating this war even further. We know this. I didn't approve it. You didn't approve it. No one in our country approved it. Our citizenship did not. They're taking our tax money and giving it to foreign nations over and over again. Another $1.3 billion is like a drop in the bucket to them. The Pentagon probably accidentally sent another $8 billion by accident as well. Nobody's talking about it, but who knows? But watching more aid pouring into Ukraine under the Security Assistance Initiative, which is a freaking joke, sending surface-to-air missiles as well as munitions for them, and Phoenix Ghost, and Switchblade drones. Now, the Switchblade drones are the ones I'm talking about that are made for long-term targeting of targets. They're actually explosives. They're basically missiles, but kamikaze. So sending those drones there is just ridiculous at this point. I mean, we've seen once and over again and again over the past 17 months, weapons pulled from the U.S. stockpile and quickly shipped to Ukraine. We've seen our stockpile diminish greatly to the point we can't do anything. I mean, if we had to go to war right now, what would we use? That's the sad fact. I mean, as we're watching this, military aid, including funding for artillery and mine clearing equipment and missiles and munitions, trucks and other vehicles, and port security equipment and system to counter drones. Overall, the U.S. has provided well over $100 billion in military aid since the invasion of 2022. Now, what the U.S. claims they've sent is only $40 billion, which we know is a joke at this point because we've seen the real numbers, and it's well over $100 billion. For more money to be pouring in Ukraine is just ridiculous. And Ukraine saying that they have the strength to stop Russian missile strikes and Russian drone strikes is just a joke. We know today Russia struck Ukraine's critical port facility in Odessa. After, of course, halting the grain deal Monday, Russia unleashed an intensive drone and missile strike overnight, damaging critical port infrastructure in southern Ukraine, including grain and oil terminals, wounding at least 12 people. The bombardment crippled a significant part of the export facilities in Odessa nearby and destroyed nearly 60 tons of grain. But yet, they're intercepting every single one of Russia's missiles, every single drone that Russia sends out. Got to remember, this is the information they're telling us. So how does this happen? How does Putin manage when they're failing, they have nothing left, they have no weaponry left, no missiles left? This is what we're being told by the U.S., of course. And then Vladimir Putin takes no time at all to wipe out the major port, the only port that's really possible to export this grain, destroy the grain facilities that are there. Russia pulled out its participation in the Black Sea Grain Initiative because of what Ukraine has done. Ukraine, of course, Russia was still allowing grain to be exported out of Ukraine and given to the countries that were in the world that were hungry. But, Ukraine decided to attack Crimea directly. This is a tit-for-tat situation, and we're escalating it. Nobody else. Ukraine's not escalating it. Russia's not escalating it. We are. We keep sending more weapons. The U.S., I don't think we're even defending biolabs at this point. I think we're defending something that he has, that Zelensky has on Biden and Hunter. Joe Biden and Hunter. That's the only reason. Let's be honest. Massive amounts. I mean, Russia's taking more ground every day. And we just keep dumping money. Nobody's going to call it out. Nobody's going to say this is a problem. The Biden administration tried to secretly today suspend funding to the Wuhan lab. But guess what? That didn't hide very long. Biden administration suspended all federal funding to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Hold on. We were still funding it till now? We were still funding the viral labs in China that supposedly were the origins of coronavirus? Still? This information was only made public because of the House subcommittee today that released it. The memo, of course, said the facility has reportedly refused to provide documentation and answer questions from the National Institute of Health and Safety, and the HSS told the lab it's seeking to cut off funding permanently, and that's what it did. The memo dating Monday was the first reported. So, Wuhan Institute likely violated protocols regarding biosafety and wouldn't even answer questions about it. We've been funding them since. The Institute, of course, which we're claiming has not received any federal money since 2020, has now 30 days to respond for this notice. But to say we weren't funding this exact lab. Now, we heard this 100 times. We heard our freaking health director sit up there and be a joke of himself saying we're not funding gain of function research into any coronavirus, much less COVID-19. But yet, now we're seeing that we cut off funding to a lab that was particularly studying COVID viruses with bats. Oh, it never happened. This memo, of course, that got released is showing that there's a huge problem. And that the organization, the Wuhan Lab, started giving grants in 2014. The Wuhan Institute was started getting grants from the United States National Health in 2014. Not a surprise. Intelligence community, of course, has yet to reach a conclusion about where the virus originated from. But of course, China blocking blocking international scientists from exploring all possibilities is a joke. If we're funding that lab directly, why couldn't we get answers directly from that lab? Oh, wait, because we didn't want to know. Our leaders did not want to point fingers at that time. And the taxpayer funds that were used for research could have supercharged the coronavirus in the first place, causing the pandemic itself. That's right. Our tax dollars could have funded this directly and caused the pandemic. By having to admit that, of course, our government would have to do a full extent of research being conducted in Wuhan and, of course, share that information with the public. This is crazy. Nobody's brought up this problem. And of course, if our tax dollars did supercharge this and cause the pandemic itself, because of lab leaks of a supercharged virus we paid to create, would just be astronomical. People would be floored. There's several solar flares happening right now. Whole bunch. Nobody's talking about that either. Nobody's talking about the coronal mass ejections I was talking about Monday. Massive amounts. Yeah, more Marburg virus. Well, not only that, just the microplastics, not microplastics, but some of the crystalline structures that were inside of the test kits have proven to go across the brain barrier in the back of your nasal cavity. So it's interesting what will happen with that in the future and how that will affect people's health and brain. As, of course, those crystals work their way into people's brains and what they do, we'll see. Of course, South Africa, Putin is supposed to be sitting at the summit, but he will not. Putin will not be going to the summit in Johannesburg next month because of the ICC arrest warrant. Vladimir Putin has agreed not to attend the summit because he doesn't want to cause problems, but China's premier and other world leaders will be there. Of course, this is all for BRICS Nation. And we're seeing this gathering of BRICS as it's developing its own economy. And of course, sidelining the U.S. dollar. As it grows stronger, of course, we'll see more pressure set forth against the International Court to drop this thing against Putin. Of course, the United States doesn't even supply the International Court or believe in it. So, watching the BRICS alliance, of course, and an alternative to the West global dominance, is moving forward and marching forward. It's not just slowly. It's one thing after another. I mean, and we could say a lot of things about the U.S. is the best military in the world, and the U.S. does the right thing, and the U.S. does this. But we know the U.S. has done a lot of bad. We know there's a lot of cynics out there. I mean, I'm 100% for the U.S., but I've known, and everybody's known, we've not necessarily been the most forthcoming when we do actions with our military. But once a real thing happened today, when a U.S. soldier crossed into North Korea, he defected to North Korea, yes. Of course, seeing what's happening, grave concern is watching, the rare event when a U.S. soldier decides to step across and defect to North Korea. Yes, stumbling across nearby under heavy gunfire in a mad dash for sanctuary. Right. Obviously, there's something else happening. And this could have caused an international incident today, but fortunately it did not. Crazy. It's crazy watching what's happening to the world as the world goes crazy, like I said. And it's not going to stop. Yeah, digital currency has already started. FedNow started July 5th. I don't think I really talked about that. Yes, we have U.S. citizen or U.S. military member defecting to Korea. July 5th, though, FedNow did open. Of course, the fees and charges for FedNow will not be implemented till the end of this year, 2024, I believe on the 2nd of January is when fees get implemented. But FedNow will then be, of course, processing and handling all money in all exchanges within U.S. banks, which, of course, can limit those exchanges. And because of the new queue numbers for stores and items being bought, your receipts will now have those queue numbers attached. So if they don't want you to buy a gun and you're designated not to be able to with your checking account because they don't want you to, whether you're approved for the background check or not, you won't be able to. You're going to pay and your payment will be declined because they have the access to that. Pretty scary. Not only that, the amount of fees and charges that they're attaching onto it. FedNow will end up demolishing the lower class and middle class. There's transactional fees, there's cash out fees, there's every transaction there's a fee, there's a monthly fee. I mean, it's ridiculous. He did not get kidnapped. Of course, talking about IRS whistleblowers, let's get into this because testifying today before the House subcommittee about the meddling on the Justice Department investigations of Hunter Biden, saying, the Justice Department definitely meddled in the investigation. We already know this. It's not a question. But, of course, the hearing before the GOP-led panel featured testimony from Garrett Shapley, an agent in the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, and Joseph Ziegler, who works with the agency's international tax and financial crime section. Of course, the two witnesses had critical information to share about the panel's investigation and what he alleged is the Biden family influenced peddling scheme. Pretty surprising information has come out of this. But of course, you can guess, Democrats, of course, saying IRS whistleblowers are basically second-guessing other investigators. Basically trying to call them out as liars, even though both these are career professionals, showing that Shapely even has red lines where he was observing U.S. Attorney David Weiss in Delaware, who oversaw the Hunter Biden case, and a room full of senior FBI and IRS officials back in October 22, when he was not the deciding person whether to file charges. Shapely said the reason concerns during the meeting that 2 weeks later, the IRS was entirely cut out of the case by the Justice Department. Oh, what a surprise. The Justice Department stepped in and cut the IRS out. That's not a surprise to any of us. We know the corruption and everything. Of course, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in late June that he was told that in late June that he was granted ultimate authority in the terms of where and when and how to file charges in the case. But Shapely, of course, remarks showed a direct contrary evidence to that, as he's got at least 12 witnesses that can witness what was said in that meeting, where, of course, he was not given permission to pull special counsel to, of course, charge him in Delaware. So this all leads back to what's happening next. That's the surreal founding, that we know the IRS and the IRS agents had plenty of information on Hunter Biden, and of course were told not to even look at Joe Biden. The IRS had recommended both felony and misdemeanor charges against the president's son. Of course, the gross mismanagement presented through this investigation, because the Department of Justice is stepping in. There was a waste of funds related to the tax dollars spent on the investigation of this case. There was abuse of authority within the DOJ and the Delaware United States Attorney's Office. And it's sickening to see this happening. We have obvious problems with the Hunter Biden issue. Of course, Hunter Biden probe began just right after Obama took office. I mean, this is crazy. Biden administration, of course, trying to play this out like Joe Biden or Hunter Biden did nothing wrong still. He doesn't even do drugs anymore, according to his father. But he's living in the White House and doing this. Sad state of events we're living in here in the United States. That's happening right now. She's charging them, but whether they actually get charged or not is going to be a whole nother problem. When they actually go to court, and if they actually get found guilty. And doing lines in the cubby. He's not doing any drugs. He was probably doing lines in the presidential library. And let me say another thing. This whole finding drugs in the White House, it's driving me crazy. Because first they said the library, and they said, oh, well, the public can go in that. The public cannot go in that library. You can walk by it, but you cannot go in. That is for the president and his guests only. Those are the only people that are allowed to enter the library. It's not like massive amounts of people. That's the reason they moved the drugs to another, or said the drugs are found in another location, and then said it again. Moving the drugs around, or saying the drugs were in different places, was just a distraction, because the people that actually know the White House and how it operates knows that guests or people visiting the White House, unless they're invited by the president himself, cannot just walk in there. That's information they didn't think people picked up on at first. Of course, that's the reason they turn their heads and say, "Oh no, it was found here." They know it was Hunter. They stopped the investigation. If I was Joe Biden and I knew it wasn't my son, I would not allow that investigation to stop, because that investigation is hurting his chances of ever doing anything again, much less all the other problems he has. Yeah, they're charged by the Attorney General, but whether they actually get convicted of the charges are a total different thing. There's always a set of alternate electorates sent. They don't get to actually cast their votes usually, but they try to cast their votes. Whether it's a felony or not, because their votes didn't get cast because they weren't counted, was a whole nother story. But what the president is trying to do right now is buy votes again with the same ploy he used last time. Biden's latest student loan move is a blatant vote buy, not a question. What the president is trying to do is just blatantly buy votes. The Supreme Court has ruled it illegal for the student loan payoff or forgiveness. And you can't just do it with a stroke of the pen and wipe away over $500 billion in student loan debt. But of course, watching this happen is ridiculous because Democrats are going to fall for it once again. And students, of course, that desperately need the money are going to go and say, well, Joe Biden said we're going to get $20,000 debt relief for higher education through the HEROES Act. Well, the Supreme Court has already ruled that that is not legal. But yet he's doing it again, claiming that he's going to forgive this debt through the Higher Education Act now. Just naming it something else doesn't give you the right to do something. Not even as president. Where she says he's going to, this route will take longer because it has to be negotiated through rulemakers process, the law, basically Congress and the House, which he won't, and they will not get approval for this. Little is known about how much relief could even be given if anybody qualifies for it, and if it even passes. But Biden continues to try to buy these votes by coming up with another scheme that sounds really good. I'm going to forgive your student debt. It's not forgiving anything. It's already a loan made by the federal government, and somebody has to pay for it. Taxpayers. Oh, wait, that's the people that actually work. But it's unclear how much, of course, this new plan that Biden plans on pushing through is going to cost. The HEROES Act was estimated at $400 billion if it went through, but of course didn't because a stroke of a pen cannot authorize that. But as Biden tries to blatantly buy votes again, if somebody falls for this a second time, I mean, they got to be pretty dim-witted. Let's be honest. But if you look at America and the current problems we're facing, most colleges are liberal washed. They believe it without a second guess. And showing that young people are blaming Republicans and the Supreme Courts for the lack of debt relief. And they are they began repaying their student loans for the first time in 3 years now, but they're blaming the Republicans in the Supreme Court for something Biden promised and could never deliver. So, of course, promising it again just makes them blame Biden even more. Why not? Right? That's what they're thinking. All this is troubling at this point, watching what's happening. Of course, Russia striking Ukraine, critically striking Ukraine. It's just sad. It is sad what we are seeing, and it's sad what's unfolding around the world as we see BRICS nation get stronger together. Of course, the U.S. throwing more money into Ukraine, which is just ridiculous at this point. We can't afford it. We can't afford housing our own veterans. And they're talking about going after people at the southern border, not going after the, of course, illegal immigrants that are crossing, but going after the Border Patrol agents because of too much use of force. This is ridiculous. We have a southern border that people from foreign countries that are against us are paying $80,000 to $200,000 to get into our country illegally. Who is going to pay that amount unless it's for nefarious purposes? Who? What Chinese national or Russian national is going to come up with that amount of money to come in here when they could do that legally at that point? They can afford it. But they're doing it through the back door. All military-age men. And nobody's questioning this. Massive numbers of immigration that could lead to, obviously, troubling times for us in the future. Power grids are already failing just because they can't support the charging of electric vehicles. Imagine if there was a catastrophe where the grid cascaded. Or, better yet, a solar storm hits us. Just watching what's happening. I mean, the sun's activity, we got activity that's going to end up leading us to war if we don't watch and be careful about it. Nobody's talking about the major problems. People need to wake up. People need to be prepared. I mean, God bless you guys, though. And I wish we could wake up these kids these days that are being brainwashed by the left. Of course, leading to these issues is not going to be great. It's not going to help us at all. But if you can afford to donate, please do. We desperately need the donations, of course, to cover the cost, not just of the show, costs associated with the show, like hosting and software. So those costs come up yearly, and they're coming up soon for our software costs. But God bless you guys. I'm going to say goodnight for now, and of course, we will see you Friday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Till then, be safe and just be prepared for anything, because we are in a crazy world. We're in a crazy world that's just getting crazier by the day. God bless you guys. God bless America. Stay safe, and good night.